Meeting is being recorded. Hi, it's Shirley here, and today I want to justify the name of my channel by doing some sinful stuff. And without further ado, I'm going to open up the natal chart of a physicist called Richard Feynman. You may have heard about him, and practice my astrology skills on it, which is beautiful because this is a person who considered what I do to be pseudoscience. I think I need to, here I am. Let's share the screen. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I think it's here. Okay, share. Can you see me? Yes, great, wonderful. So, Feynman's sun. That's the chart. I got the details from AstroSeek. You can see here is Richard Dick Feynman. So that's from AstroSeek. We got a couple of things here. So just take a look at this before I begin talking and see what you see there. Ignore the transits. Where to begin? I'm gonna say what I know. I took whole sign houses as I'm practicing learning whole sign houses. And I'm going to integrate some traditional and modern stuff. First thing I look at, is the 9th house. Packed with planets. We have Vesta there, which is what we dedicate ourselves to. And this is the house of spiritual practices, higher knowledge, travels, academics as well, hierarchical institutions like academics, teacher, student, the house of the guru and the mentor, definitely teacher. We see the sun there, and sun is also signifies the father. It's not the only significator of the father, and father is not the only significator of the sun. There are more meanings to the sun, but definitely Feynman's father had deeply affected his spirituality, so to speak, or scientific spirituality, and his thought patterns. And you see the sun very much supports the ascendant in Virgo, practical, detail-oriented, perhaps even rigorous, and its ruler, the ruler of the ascendant, is Mercury. Okay, the mind, the teacher, the thinking processes. And here is something really beautiful that I want you to see about Feynman. One of the things he said if you take any person and you give them a passion and you make them learn and study hard and work hard and battle the battles it takes to gain knowledge, then they will become a scientist. You don't have genius people just walking around there. It's all the result of a lot of work and dedication. And you can see a couple of stuff. Well, the first thing is Mercury being in Taurus. Mercury is the fastest moving planet next to the sun. Of course, except for the moon. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. Mercury is fast, is detail-oriented, is communicating, is relating. Taurus is Earth. It's fixed. It's slow. It is not compatible so naturally and so easily. It's not Pisces, but it's not so easily compatible with the mercurial abilities. It's not a home for Mercury. So you see, Feynman was not a genius in the sense that he was born with it. He was a genius in the sense that he worked very hard for his insights. And you can see Mercury is supported by Uranus in the 6th. And Uranus, I will touch on Uranus when I talk about what he did, what was his theories, what were his theories. And is definitely supported by sextile from Pluto in the 11th. And oh, will I touch that Pluto in the 11th in Cancer. But Mercury is also obstructed by Neptune and Saturn in the 12th in Leo. Saturn has its joy in the 12th. It's happy in the 12th. Saturn can delay losses of the 12th. The house of loss, the house of what we don't know that we don't know about ourselves. So Saturn can do a good job in the 12th. We want Saturn to delay stuff that are considered bad luck or bad spirit. And yet it adds another effect of slowing down of the mind, slowing down of the thinking process, slowing Mercury down a bit. Neptune does another thing. Neptune is disillusionment. It's dissolution of the ego. It's dissolution of boundaries. It's dissolution of everything, which is why it's so spiritual. But it is also why it is so illusion. And Neptune is in Leo. And when we get Neptune in the 12th in Leo, we are talking about the shadow side of Leo. Now, Leo shines. Leo is, it's ruled by the sun. It's a magnet. It's light. It's generous. It's kind. It's benevolent. It can also be, on the shadow side, it can have a sense of grandiose. And we see that Richard Feynman has admittedly stated over and over again that we are you are the easiest to fool, and you must not fool yourself. That's a very Mercury battling Neptune with the help of Saturn. So we have this hard reality check of Saturn and the illusion of Neptune that wants to give you that sense of grandiose, that wants to elude you, that wants to make you feel a fool, to make a fool out of you. This can also denote at perhaps a fear of being put to ridicule, though not necessarily. But Feynman has definitely battled. We talk about our struggle being our teacher. That's definitely battling the struggles of the mind, battling thought. Thought was not easy. Of course, he had a harmonic aspect to Pluto, and Pluto is penetrative. Pluto is grasping things at the cellular level. So he was very much supported in his battle, but it was a battle. It was not harmonic. It was not easy. It is definitely an example of what you can do with an unsupported Mercury. It's an example of how you can be smarter, of how you can gain achievements in real life if you have passion, if you have supportive aspects to you that provide you passion, that you can overcome obstacles, and you can be a genius even when your Mercury is very much in pain. This is how your struggle is your teaching. So we touched on the 9th. Its ruler is in the 8th. And the 8th is, and Venus is also the ruler of the 2nd. The 8th is something that is hidden. The 8th is also the assets and resources that are not ours, and it's the gate of life and death. Venus is also the spouse, and we definitely see that the first spouse of Feynman died very young. The ruler of the 7th is also in the 12th, the Neptune, the ruler of the 7th. Yeah, the traditional is in the 10th. So definitely there was a boost to the 10th through the 7th, through the wife, through the spouse, both the first and the second. They were very much supportive of Feynman. They moved around with him, they traveled with him, they supported him emotionally, psychologically. The first wife died when she was very young, I think 21. I think she died of cancer. And also the wife gave him some artistic abilities. She opened him up to see the beauty in that which is not engineering, or not just rigorous logical thought. And this is not my words, this is Feynman's words in his autobiographic books. Another thing about this Venus, it supports the 12th. So it supports the struggles, the psychological struggles that Feynman had with his Mercury, are being very much supported by the Venus person in his life. Although Venus is far from being exalted. It's in Aries, it's in a fire sign. I don't know the decan, so I guess the decan would be important here for Venus. That's something I still need to educate myself about. So it's in 5 degrees Aries. If you know the decan, or you can look it up and you want to comment about that, that's very much encouraged. And we said the father was supportive. Juno is also in Taurus. So Juno in Taurus, giving us a spouse that is beautiful, and Feynman also really was bewitched by beauty, a very Taurian kind of thing, even though, you know, his Venus is in Aries. Aries is very raw and passionate, but the sense for beauty, the sense for aesthetics, those jokes that are almost sexist about, you know, looking at the mechanics of the water in the pool, if a woman coming into it, and if the woman is not too beautiful, you can look at the mechanics of the pool and not the beauty of the woman, you know, all kinds of things that, you know, from our generation, from our perspective, are like almost sexist, but it was being bewitched by beauty, and also the beauty of women. Another thing that is beauty and related to Venus in Aries, and here I'm doing something that is perhaps risky, perhaps, you know, far-fetched, but I will try. Aries is a fire sign. It is a fire that ignites and is fast and quick. It is light. And so being fascinated with the beauty of that which is light or fiery was perhaps about of what he did with his science, what he found beautiful, and what he was bewitched by, because Feynman was bewitched by beauty and wanted to learn. Because we have the ruler of the 9th in the 8th. But that is a very far-fetched, perhaps even risky interpretation. Do educate me more if you have something, you know, constructive to say about that. I'm open to criticism. Just make it nice and tender, because I'm of a smooth and sensitive psyche, albeit my Aryan Mercury. 10th house, the mother figure, okay, Moon, was not so supportive. She seems to be like supportive of Venus and Chiron, which is nice, but she was not so supportive of the first. And we know that Feynman's mother had joked about him being like an idiot, or, you know, kind of a trickster. But she was not as supportive as his dad. That's at least from what he said. And you can definitely see that. But she was a very important figure. And conjunction in Aldebaran, I also don't have anything smart to say about that, but you might know more than me. Look at Jupiter. So we have the 10th house in Gemini, and we would expect a scientist, a philosopher, one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, to have like a 10th house in Sag or something, you know, higher learning, and not like Mercury, which is what it skills. It's like also almost elementary school skills. Although your elementary school is also the 4th house, but and the 3rd house is skills, but Mercury is mercurial abilities are also skills and oratory abilities. And definitely Feynman was an orator. Yeah, he was an orator, no less than he was a scientist. That's how we know him. But look at Jupiter there. Jupiter is youth. Jupiter is the childish spirit. Jupiter is looking at the world with the eyes of a child. You know, it's not just enhancing the tent. It's not just happy in the tent because it's being public. It's young in the, it's shining in the tent. And the image of Feynman, even the older he got, the younger he got energetically. If you pay attention to his looks and you see, he looks way more beautiful when he has, you know, gray hair and thin body and those, you know, almost pajamas he wore for his lectures. He looks way more beautiful than when he was young. If you pay attention to that, he really shines in his tent. He really shines in the public eye. He really shines in the area of his career. He's really young. And I'm speaking energetically. I'm not speaking about his appearance so much as the energy that comes with in Jupiter and Gemini is youth. It really is youth, youthful public image. Jupiter is kind of making an action angle to Mars, but you know, it only adds vitality because Mars in the first adds vitality. It can be a person who has also sharp words, definitely with Mars in Virgo, sharp words. And definitely Feynman was a man of sharp words as well, and sharp mind. MC, of course, you know, only adding to the tent. MC in Mercury, oratory abilities, teaching abilities. Jupiter is the ruler of the 7th, and we talked about this. And the ruler of the 10th in the 9th, so definitely a teacher, public person who is known for his teaching abilities. And Feynman was able to take and grasp things that are unimaginably ethereal, like quantum mechanics of light, and make them earthy and practical and simple. Taurus is simplicity. So his ability to make really complex things very simple, not without struggle, extreme struggle, was what he was publicly known for. It was his public area, his public status, his career environment was teaching. Any more rulers before I get to Pluto? Okay, the 4th house. So the 4th house in Sag, we definitely see that this person moved around a lot. And of course, being a scientist and having meetings all over, definitely he moved around. He did not like to stay at hotels. Definitely not luxurious hotels. What he did like is staying out in the open, in nature, even camping. And his wife tagged along, which is not a given, you know, very supportive of everything he did. And Rahu there means that the Keto is in the 10th. And in terms of evolutionary astrology, this is a person who has not been, a soul that has not been public for the first time in life. A soul that already knew how to live a public life and how to do the thing that it came to do in the world. Doing home, that was a first. Doing home, that was a practice. And his children, when they talk about Feynman as a father, they talk about what he talked about when he was talking about his father, that is the father that taught them stuff. So they remember him as a teacher. Look at Keto in the 10th, ruled by the 9th. So what his children remember from him is him teaching them about the world. So even at home, he was a teacher, which is also supported by Sag. Sag is also about, you know, philosophy and learning and science. So the home that he made for himself, as well as the home that he had a lot to do with the things of teaching, of learning, of higher knowledge, of what became the 10th. So the ruler of the 4th is in the 10th. So these houses, the home was providing supportive environment for the 10th house. Public and the ruler of the 10th is in the 9th. I want you to pay attention to what I did here, because I did not say, oh, Sag, this is 9th house qualities to the 4th. No. Sag is ruled by Jupiter. Sag is learning as well. It loves to learn and explore and expand. It is idealist. So this is supportive of this. And the ruler of Gemini is in the 9th. And that gives us the connection between the 4th, the 10th, and the 9th. Not houses equals signs. You see, I did a different thing here. I don't equate houses with signs, but they work separately. If you want to know more about working separately, look at the astrology podcast. They have modules for the houses and the signs and the planets through, I think, Hellenistic astrology. They do that. They don't integrate there the modern rulers, which perhaps they might do that sometime in the future, maybe. But they do create a good structure for understanding how to separate houses from signs, which not a lot of people do. Heather Eland also does that in her courses. So I have not attended her courses, but I know that she does that. So if you want another person to learn that from, that may be another source. Anything else I want to put here? Yes. Okay, ruler of the 2nd in the 8th. Feynman was a professor. He was a teacher. His fortune was not self-made. It was made by funds. It was made by the government. It was made by the resources of others. And Venus there, you know, the ruler is there. Perhaps there have been some fights, some airy stuff, some fiery, maybe heated debates about finances, but he was very much supported. Lilith in the 2nd, I cannot say much about that. If you know, go ahead and educate me. Vertex in the 7th in Pisces. Uranus. I saved the best for last so I don't touch on Pluto. What? Yes, Uranus. The 6th is the workplace. It can also be enemies at work. But you see on the axis of having, you know, having Saturn in its join, the 12th can kind of delay the enemy's axis. So it was difficult to be an enemy of Feynman. And we have Uranus there, and this is a modern ruler of the 6th. This is a modern ruler of Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. It is about imagining new structures, imagining society as something better. Uranus can also be inventive and scientific. So his work had to do with invention and science. If you know the video Patents from Feynman, where he talks about him being at his work in the university and just saying, oh, you do, you know, you understand this in one way, then you get, what did he say, a rocket. You understand it in another way, you get a spaceship, or yeah, or a submarine, or whatever. And then just went over something very basic, a core understanding of something. Yeah, the Uranus and Pluto there, you know, the core of something that is chaotic, something that changes fast. It's the way Uranus moves, is irregular. And Pluto is core, is nuclei, is understanding something at the cellular level, the nuclei. So understanding these chaotic things in the nuclei level gave him the ability to say, oh, we could invent this, we could invent this, we could invent this. And then his boss went and wrote a patent over each of these inventions. So for Feynman, it was a 6th house thing. That was his everyday work. He was just saying something, and then his boss went and wrote patents over it. And he has a funny story. So look up Richard Feynman patents, and you'll hear a very funny story about that. But for him, he was not interested in being an inventor, in as much as just that was his daily job. He was thinking inventively when he was at his workplace, doing the regular 6th house routines to do with what you just have to do, your career stuff. And the ruler is in the 1st, again in a very detail-oriented sign, earth sign. So it is interesting to put the ruler of an air sign in an earth sign. Kind of gives an earthiness or groundedness again to airy things. And we also get that with Mercury in the ninth, again in an earth sign, kind of give this groundedness to Uranus, to the chaotic structures of stuff. Chaos, of course, was only became a thing since the 70s, and but back in Richard Feynman's time, what he could say was probability. And probability, there is nothing closer to probability than Uranus, because Uranus, the structure of Uranus, it moves and then it shifts, and then it moves in a strange way, and then it's kind of askew, and then you don't know what to expect from Uranus. So accepting that as a part of reality, Mercury seeing into Uranus, grounding it, radically accepting that that's what it is, and you cannot make it any simpler, Taurus. And you have to find a way to calculate it. So you use a statistic, you use probability. You can only say something there's a probability to something. That's a Uranus thingy. That's a Uranus thingy. So the probability of light being in a certain color, the probability of a photon being in a certain place, the probability of we need to calculate in order to engineer something with light. What else do I want to touch on here? Ruler of the 5th and the 12th. I don't know enough about the story. This could signify delay or loss of a child, but I don't know enough the story of the family and so on and so forth, so I don't want to speculate just based on reading the chart what I don't know. I did not speak with the people, and they did not come together reading from me, so it's not me who should be revealing that, even if I knew it. Too late for that. Scorpio, so ruler of the first of the third in the first, and that's Mars. So third is, it's our everyday routines as well, but more like siblings. And I know Richard Feynman had a sister which he taught to read physics, and he taught her to read books again and again and again and again and again until she gets that. And that was how she became a physicist herself, a physicist woman, who later supported him when he was accused in sexism. Let's see, Mars and Venus do not create any connection here. Venus in a fire sign, communication. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to say if I can say something about those accusations of sexism and the patterns he was behaving with. Okay, I can. But let's see if I want to get to Pluto. I'm saving the best for last. So, ruler of the first, we talked about it. Ruler of the second, we talked. Ruler of the third, we talked. Ruler of the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8, 9, 10. Yes, we got there. Okay, let's talk about Pluto. Why was I saving the best for last? Feynman, what is he known for? Dissecting reality to the core. Not accepting any lie, any deceit, any status of the thinker. One of his beautiful saying, it doesn't matter who conceived this theory, how beautiful the theory is, what is the status of the person who conceived this theory. If it does not work with experiment practicality, it is not right. A very logical, the product of his thought process was very logical, a very rigorous method of thinking. But where do we see Pluto? We see Pluto in the 11th. In Cancer. Now, Cancer is not the most frontal cortex sign, to say that. Cancer is emotional attachment, and Pluto is our attachment. And it's in the 11th. So in the 11th, we see the colleagues that were very much emotionally attached to Feynman. And Feynman was a power figure among his peers and colleagues and friends. And there were also power dynamics there amongst his friends. His friends were not exactly always allies, especially when it came to Venus things, women. We can see, you know, before I'll touch on his audience, which is really saving the best for last, I want to talk about the Pluto Venus stuff, because Pluto square Venus is not a happy aspect. So when it came to the main Venus figures in his life, with his first and second wife, they were very much a source of psychological balance to his life. But there's something very interesting about the way that he tried to practice his communication with women, and that was through the fraternities, which is also, you know, secret, you know, cults that he was a part of, 3rd, 11th, 8th, 11th, secret cults. He was taught what I guess a lot of people who try to date women and don't know how were taught, that is like seduction tips, like how to seduce someone. And the tips and tricks they teach there is how to treat someone actually disrespectfully so that you can get in bed with them. And this is actually working on creating a cognitive dissonance and creating like fast triggers of all types of emotions. And it's based on the monkey experiment, where you give sporadic arousal to monkeys and then they get addicted to it, and that interferes with their secure attachment patterns. So it's a very sick way. And I'm saying this with zero judgment as to Feynman. A lot of people, a lot of men that try to learn how to communicate, for example, with the other sex, are taught these methods because they don't have the skills to do otherwise. And that creates a spike of hormones in both the minds of the victim and the predator. It's a very predatory way to approach the other sex. Fortunately, nowadays we know more about communication and more about healing our sexualities and getting aligned with what we like and sharing it and just, you know, communicating with people as people rather than as sex objects. But the Pluto in Cancer generation was definitely not acquainted with the wealth of knowledge we have on human relationships and emotional intelligence today. And Feynman's friends said that, especially after his wife died, he was very much obsessed, and he was taught these practices to hit on women. And what he did was actually he would mistreat a woman. He wrote about it in his book. He just mentioned it, that he did it once and then stopped doing that. That he would pretend to be a student. He did not use his power as a teacher or an educator. As we know, he was battling a sense of grandiose. He was battling being put on a pedestal. He did not want that. He pretended that he was a student, and then was hitting on women that were not in his rank. They were lower rank, not in his power position, but he pretended that he was, and then he was using these methods on them. And his friend said that when a woman would not agree to be with him, he would say she's worse than a whore. So this, I don't know if he was sexually violent towards women. With the methods that he was taught, I would not be surprised if that could be something that happened. And again, I said it with zero judgment to the person, because those were the times and those were the skills, and that was what he had to play with. Those were the cards he were dealt. So that could be an issue there with being predatory. You know, a woman with that aspect could be obsessed or attract men that are obsessive, or stalking, or having power struggles. So the main figures in his life, like his first and second wife, were actually a source of balance. But the women that were not, the women that maybe were of Aries character, of more of less dignified Venus, in the sense that Venus is not supported in a fire sign. Venus is not, cannot just let go and be Venusian in a fire sign. She's not so easily connected with her body in a fire sign. She has to support Yang and demonstrate her actually Yang properties and masculine properties and own them, to allow herself to feel feminine. It's a kind of a contradictory way when you have Venus in Aries, and a lot of these women could be very insecure about their femininity and about relationships with men, and meet their counterpart in Feynman, and that could lead to a lot of destructive patterns between the sexes. So I know some of you will have heard the stories about, you know, Feynman pretending to be a student and then hitting on women and so on and so forth. So I want to mention that, and I want to have an honest discussion about that, and not just talk about Feynman, the great, you know, the great genius and so on and so forth, without having a realistic, you know, in the Feynman spirit, without making this simple and grounded and true and real and honest, even though it's not easy to digest. I cannot make the truth more simple and fluffy for you when I talk about these things. And I saved the best for last, because Pluto, it's in the 11th, and this is also where we would see the audience of a public figure, where we would see the cult of followers of Feynman. And why is it the best? Because Feynman was a scientist. He was a physicist. He was speaking against, you know, if he would see me doing this now, maybe he would be entertained, but like, that's not what he calls science. He was a frontal cortex man, not in his terms of expression. He was very passionate, he was very childlike, he was very cheeky, but what he gave, the legacy, except for the stories, the beautiful stories, Pluto, Mercury, that he left, the mythical stories that he left, that some were more true and some were less true, that he's his words, but they had the beauty of stories as the legacy that he left behind. He was applying, consciously or not, to the sense of emotional attachment. And that is something very unique, because he got people to be a mob following a cult called Feynman, in a very, you know, emotional way. So you get people to speak in a very emotionally attached way, and is worshipping a guru that speaks about the scientific method. and this is the beautiful, in astrology you can really see that. In astrology you can really see the intricacies of human nature and the phenomena called, you know, social science and physical science and cosmology, and how the different elements just combine there. You know, you have an 11th house in Cancer with Pluto there. You have a cult leader whose followers are emotionally attached to him. Emotionally attached to whom? To a scientist. This is almost insane. Now I will go to, you know, how I got to Feynman and what I do with these things. Maybe I can have a synastry there. Let me see if I can have a synastry there. Because I want you to be able to do that too. When you look at someone you like, try to see why you like them. No. Synastries. Synastries, not round synastries. And oh, I'm doing that again. Okay, will it let me now? Synastry. Let me see. That's me. Okay. So there we have it. So for me, he lights up my Taurian house, which for me is the 3rd. It's what we would listen to, the teacher we would listen to in my case. are daily practices that are more routine stuff, not routines of the sixth of the workplace, but just routines of maybe even our spiritual practices, sibling-like figures. So yeah, that would be that. My Mercury is Juno conjuncting my Venus, so important figure that triggers my Venus, Juno on my Venus, so important figure or soulmate figure. As you can see, Juno is absolutely not romantic. It's just soulmate or a main important figure in your life. It can be romantic, doesn't have to be. For me, fourth house is Gemini, and his is the 10th. So my fourth house is very much a light by his 10th. So this is home to me. This is someone who hits home. This is someone who makes me feel at home, whose sense of intelligence, his public figure, his public presence makes me feel at home. So that's something I feel very much at home with. His Pluto is in my 5th. So again, I would be the same part of this crowd, this mob, this group of followers, where had I not used certain Mercurius abilities that I have, could probably falter into blindly following Feynman. Especially if you look at my Vesta, it's right next, to that Pluto. That's what we dedicate ourselves to. So his 12th is my 6th. not that it matters. And look what he has in my 7th. So the 7th is also house of what we commit to. That's interesting. Lilith in my 8th, I don't know what that means. Okay, Scorpio house. He doesn't have anything there. Doesn't matter. Oh, that's interesting actually. His Rahu is where my Keto is. For me, Sag is the 10th, and for him the 12th. So this axis flipped. It's like we have opposite Rahus and Ketos. My Rahu is actually heading where his Keto was, but for me in the 4th. So this axis is very much activated. Home and public life, something I can relate to a lot. Nothing much there. My 12th, Uranus, no, I don't think it's anything much. And yeah, and nothing much here. I don't look at rulers now, but you can also see how, a person can ignite certain houses within you. Definitely historian, Sun and Mercury and Juno definitely ignite my Taurian house. Definitely the 4th, 10th is ignited. Definitely the 5th for me. Okay, activities I do for fun. My idea of fun is ignited. There's a Pluto there. There's an obsession there. There is something that's deeper that enters my house and right next to my Vesta. So Feynman is a prominent figure in my life. And this is how you can see that. This is actually what you should be doing. And I can even take it to a place that is even more fun for you and see what I do when I look at the composite. I will just look at the composite. They do it the Placidus way. I know I should be less lazy and do it. You know what? I will be less lazy and do it in the extended chart selection here. And let's look at the composite. I take it as midpoint, whole sign, no default, computer work, whole sign. And let's see what we see there. You can do that with anybody, just anybody. I always look at outer to inner planets. You can see that the higher point is Rahu. So this is a very significant union of souls, in the sense that that what this person does and what I do in the world is very significant. It's a figure that is very significant, at least in my life. Like, he is no longer with us, at least in his previous physical body. Lots of 10th house stuff prominent in the chart. Where's Pluto? Here is Pluto, supported. Okay, supporting the Mercury. Okay. What else do we have interesting here? Uranus. Uranus, Mars, so rebelliousness. Uranus, Mars, when you see in composite charts, is one Mars rebelling at one's Uranus. You can see people who think in a way that rebels each other. And you can see me doing an astrological chart of a physicist who would consider what I'm doing completely, you know, pack of bullshit or something. That is an act of rebellion. Uranus, Venus, we're not having an affair together. Uranus, Mercury, again, rebellion, strong rebellion. You know, the very act of me doing this composite chart with a physicist who disdained astrology in itself is an act of rebelliousness. A cheerful one. This is a person that is dear to my heart, but not without, you know, expressing my mind. Dear to my heart, but I would not save my mind from expressing itself. Moon, harshly unsupported by Saturn. Would not get along emotionally. The ascendant in Gemini, public. Ascendant in Gemini for composites, I really like it. With living people, of course, because it is more transparent. For example, in Taurus, you can get this masquerade where the relationships looks as one thing, but is actually another. And in Gemini, you can really get at the essence of what it is. We don't have a relationship, but that's something that's nice to see. And the moon there, highly unsupported, but is okay with Neptune and the sun. I like the Pluto Mercury thingy, the harmonic between Pluto and Mercury, the effect on the thought. And I feel I would use Feynman a lot when I was in my academia, because I would just get to channel his thought process, and that would speed up things for me, even though he struggled a lot with his mind. Like his way of thinking or innovativeness I would kind of be able to channel that when I would want to write something academic. So I would listen to him, and then I would write whatever I do, even if though it's absolutely not related to his field, and something there would feel better. And this tells me why, because there is harmonics between. I got Pluto Mercury opposition. You got Pluto Mercury sextile, and this Pluto Mercury trine kind of makes thinking more beautiful and harmonic. Not harmonic and beautiful. I mean, it is in the composite. It is in Aries, and definitely had such an aggressive mind. I would become more aggressive when I was under his influence, and in my intellect. And I have a Mercury in Aries, so I'm very aggressive as I am. So in my intellect, but this is creating sort of a beautifying effect, not in a Venusian way, but in a way that it makes thinking more harmonic and makes it easier to get penetrative insights. That's what that was my personal experience with the energy of Richard Feynman. That's also, I guess, why I love watching him, and it may have contributed to my astrological analysis of what's going on here. Venus, Mars, Venus opposition Mars. Yes, we are not alive to live that. Venus opposition Neptune. It can be illusion about the person, illusion of what, you know, you may think that this person is one thing, but is actually another, and so on and so forth. Beautiful trine between the Sun and Uranus and Saturn. I like that. That was interesting. Feel free to share more of what you saw there. Stop sharing this screen. I cannot describe in words how fun this is. Active, being a cheeky astrologer, doing these things, and I want to do it with more scientists. So if you have any charts for me that you want me to look into, of scientists, of cosmologists, of physicists, I'm very much into looking into that and seeing the stuff. I don't think I got to really get at the core of, yeah, I touched a bit on the Uranus and light and so on, with his theories. So that was my perspective, and I'd love to hear yours. And please like this video, share it with people that you think would benefit from that. Share it with respectful people. Like, I know this can get nasty when somebody does what I did right now, but this is really to do some fun stuff and to do some astrology in a way that we're not used to. So yeah, I'll keep doing that for a while because I'm being called to do that. And if you want to receive more notifications for when I upload a video, then you have to both subscribe and click the bell and make sure you check like receiving every update that I send, because otherwise if you just subscribe, they don't send you notifications. That's how YouTube works. I don't know why do they do that, but that's their logic, and perhaps there's a good reason for it. I'll see you in my next video. This was very fun for me. I hope and I hope someone will watch it, because I think maybe I'm the only enthusiast. And yeah, it would be very interesting what would be the reaction of people who will discover this in their YouTubing Richard Feynman. Hope I don't get too much hate comments. I'll see you in my next video. Ciao. And